Very, very cool. Hi, guys. Welcome to Make Pod. My name is Jay Clark. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, just to kind of set this podcasting panel up. If there's any confusion, this podcast is going to be about podcasting. I'm not really going to do a podcast here, just pass on some information to people who may be interested. So, again, my name is Jay Clark. I started podcasting about 5.5 years ago. I was just a podcasting fan, decided to start one up myself, which I did. So now I'm the host of a show called An Elegant Weapon. I'm also the curator of a podcast network, which is a group of podcasters who get together, try to help cross-promote, like a team. And so I'm the curator of the Points of Interest podcast network. And I'm also a member of a few shows on the Podcast Detroit network, just across the river here, and Never Sleeps Network, which is a network out of Toronto. Yeah, I started about 5 years ago. It's been a slow build. It's an incredible experience. So what I'm basically going to tell you guys is how to do this yourselves if you're interested. Now, the super, super cool thing about podcasting is anybody can do it, literally. Anybody in this room. I don't care if your age or gender, whatever, anybody can podcast. Unless you're unfortunately mute, it's very hard to do sign language audio. But, if you can talk, you can do a podcast. Anybody can do it. It's so simple. It can start with something as easy as this. You got your little mini computer in your pocket, comes with a little voice memo section. Turn that on, hit record, and you're podcasting. It's that easy. Do we have any podcasters in here? Anybody who listens to podcasts? Okay. Well, for those who aren't familiar with what a podcast is exactly, it's audio. It's shareable audio on the internet that you can download and put onto anything you want. Usually in the form of an hour conversation, whether with a guest or with a few friends, kind of like a panel, or a lot of guys go solo. There's no limits. That's the cool thing is there's no rules. Podcasting is not, there's no authoritative group. There's no FCC. There's no anything. You can literally talk about whatever you want. What kind of defines a podcast is that you can get it and put it on anything. It's not like YouTube. There's a lot of debates where a YouTube show, is that a podcast? If you do your podcast live on YouTube, does that count? It's kind of a gray area because podcasting is such a new, even though it's been around for like 10 years, it's still kind of a new medium people are trying to figure out. So technically, if you're on YouTube, you can't download that. You can't take it with you. You can't put it on any device you want. Not really a podcast. What a podcast starts with is called an RSS feed. All right? Now, your RSS feed is the base of everything. Basically, it's your feed that's going to go out to the entire internet. That feed is going to go to iTunes, it's going to go to Stitcher, it's going to go to wherever you want it to go, whatever platform you can put it on. So you start basic, you have to get your RSS feed. So there are lots of really cool podcasting host sites. The most popular is called Libsyn. And basically what you're doing is you pay the site, they provide you with your RSS link and storage. And it's pretty much as simple as that. There's lots of cool other little things you can do, like embeddable players that you can put on sites and stuff like that. But the basics of it are that you need an RSS feed. Once you have that feed, you can start podcasting. So say I record an hour, right? And I want to put that on the internet. So I have a site. I personally use a site called Podbean. It's a very cool site. So I take my MP3. Usually podcasts are about an hour, but that is not a rule. That's not something you have to follow. Joe Rogan's been known to podcast for like 6 hours at a time. You can do it any way you want, which is the cool thing. So I say I have my Podbean. I take my MP3 and I upload it to that site, and then I post it like you would on like a website. You publish it, even like just on Facebook. You fill out your post, you put your info, you put that file there, you hit publish. Then from there, that's where your podcast goes to the world. iTunes is going to catch that RSS feed. Everybody's going to catch that RSS feed. You have your podcast, right? It's really that simple. So when I started, it was me and a friend in our basement. We hit record on the iPhone, and that was it. we talked for an hour about the most ridiculous stuff. We talked about Portuguese man o' wars, a little bit about Star Trek Voyager. I remember we recast Star Trek Voyager for some reason. And then that was it. And then 5 years later, 235 episodes later, just still rolling along. Now, as I said, you can do anything. You can talk about anything. I happen to talk about mainly Star Wars and comic books, right? So that's kind of my niche. But there's a podcast for everybody and anybody. If you like fishing, there's a podcast. If you like specifically fly fishing, there is a podcast. If you're a fan of Shane Amato's beard, there's probably a podcast out there addressing that. Probably not, but I'm just saying, as an example, literally, I've heard of podcasts about the most ridiculous things out there. Sometimes it's just consciousness, stream of thought, right? Some people just like to talk to themselves in their basement for an hour, get their feelings out and share it with people, right? So I fell in love with podcasting because I listened to podcasts. I was a big fan. Your big typical ones, Chris Hardwick, The Nerdist, Kevin Smith and his billion podcasts, Joe Rogan, Mark Maron, all these people who were influenced me. And I was like, just like Kevin Smith says, anybody can do this, anybody should do this, and I agreed. And I was like, you're absolutely right. I'm gonna do this. So I did. So we started simple with the Podbean site and An Elegant Weapon, and we just had the one show. I started meeting a lot of other shows. There's a lot of really cool interaction between podcasts. It's a good community. As far as there's a little competition, just because, a little competition is healthy. It's nothing crazy. There's not like, any big drama in the podcasting community, but most podcasters love podcasting so much, they're going to help you out. They're going to do whatever they can to be part of the team and be positive, which is a really amazing thing. So I started meeting all these other shows, became friends with the hosts and the producers, and that led to a point where a friend of mine had a podcast network, Points of Interest, and I joined up with that network. There was another network that I was kind of part of called the Junk Food Podcast Network. That was Phoenix Shanklin. If you ever heard of Nerdette on Twitter or Facebook, quite popular in the blurred community, black nerds. I don't know if you've heard that term yet, but it's a term and it exists. And we decided so many of our shows and hosts were cross-podding, as we call it, appearing on each other's shows, sharing shows, putting out dual episodes on 2 streams, that we thought this is silly. So we conglomerated into one giant network, and that's the Points of Interest Podcast Network. So what I had to do from there was build a website where I had to get everybody else's RSS feeds, like I was talking about. They provide me with their RSS feeds, and then I can send all of them through one website. So the cool thing is, once you have your RSS feed, you can make a website, you could have a blog, you don't even need a website. They have a page, like Libsyn or the Podbean will have a website type looking page with your post, with a player, with download, so you don't necessarily need it. Like I have my show An Elegant Weapon as a website, anelegantweapon.ca. Then there's anelegantweapon.podbean.com, which is the original source, but it's a lot easier to just have your website. Nice, clean looking any way you want, right? But I don't really need that website because I've got Podbean. You could just go to Podbean and see all my posts and all my episodes, but it's not as pretty. Yes, Julie?
So you just need the RSS feed for all the other networks?
Yes, you just need that for anything.
So anyway, yeah.
Well, no, your RSS feed is your podcast. It's your link. It's like your homing beacon, if I can describe it as that. Okay, it's what it stands for is real simple syndication, and what that means. I think I got those words right. Real simple syndication, I think. But the whole idea of an RSS feed is that anybody can get at it. Anybody can download it, anybody can pluck it out of the air on the internet wherever you want to put it. So I took my RSS feed, I got it from Podbean, so it's on Podbean, and then I took that and I put a player on my website, and then I submitted the RSS to iTunes, to Stitcher, to SoundCloud, to these other platforms. They accept it, and then you can start downloading. So all those podcasts, if you use iTunes, which is the most popular one, all those shows aren't originating from iTunes. You don't put anything into iTunes. You don't even deal with iTunes. It's all automatic. So once I had that RSS feed, I just submitted it to iTunes, and now they catch my Podbean site. So anything I put on my Podbean site is going to be automatically published to all those other places. It's a one-step process. Once you set it up, that you don't got to worry about it at all. It's really, really easy. It's really simple. Real simple syndication. Anybody can just pluck it out, right? So that's kind of the basics of how the structure of podcasting works. And these sites are very simple to use. They're very, very good as far as step-by-step instructions. They want to make it simple. They want to make it easy for people. I would be wary of SoundCloud. SoundCloud is getting very, very popular these days. Well, it was getting very popular for podcasting, but it's kind of going the other way because SoundCloud is a platform that was meant for music producers. So it is set up to cater to their needs. A lot of it is not podcast specific enough to be able to control your content the way you want to. They're kind of having some issues. They're losing money right now, and we don't really know where they're gonna be. So do your research, pick the ones you like, because if you go with the SoundCloud and in 2 years they're gone, all that content disappears. You're not gonna get a friendly email that says, oh, here's all your MP3s and all your years of whatever. No, if you don't have that backed up on your own computer, just your own personal file of your episode MP3s, you're gonna lose it all. It's not gonna be there if that site goes away. So you wanna pick a long, established, podcast-specific site, like Podbean, like Libsyn. They're great. I don't really go beyond recommending those two because they're the top and it's fairly affordable. A podcast will cost you around $100 a year, maybe $10 a month. And that's just paying for your storage, right? That's mainly what you're paying for. They'll give you your RSS and then you just gotta pay them to keep your storage there, right? I personally keep it there and I also have a second copy of that episode just on my hard drive at home, just in case the internet ever dies or implodes and it goes away. I've still got my episodes, right? Or if you want to switch, maybe you're not happy after 6 months with one company, you can try another one and they actually make it really easy to just transfer all those MP3s to another site. So they're very simple to use, very easy. Podcasting will cost you, like I say, $9-10 a month, give or take $1. For the entire year, about $100 or so, right? There's other ways to do it once you learn and get along and evolve. Some people just straight up use WordPress.com, build a website, and there are applications you can get to build your own RSS feed. I don't recommend doing that right off the bat unless you are willing to take the next month of your life to fall into a deep, dark YouTube hole learning how to do all this, like I did. It was fun. It's cool to learn. I never thought, like 10 years ago, I could barely use Facebook, right? Podcasting, because of podcasting, at this point, 10 years later, I'm building websites, I'm using code, things I never even comprehended at the time that I would ever use or need, right? So that's one bonus to podcasting. I've learned other skills on the side that I can apply to other things even, and maybe continue to learn with those, and who knows what the future holds, right? So that's the cool part of that. So now down to the actual basics of actual podcasting. What do you need? You could do this. Hit record on your voice memos and start talking. It's as simple as that. You may get sick of that soon enough and be like, I want my podcast to have a little bit better audio quality, because there's not many rules to podcasting, but there are etiquettes. And one thing I would almost say is a rule is it's gotta be audible. You can have some fuzz, whatever. You don't have to be an audio engineer. You don't have to be any of that, but you gotta be able to hear what they're saying. You gotta be able to hear enough of the conversation that you forget about maybe some white noise or a con sound in the background or trucks driving by. Like if it's too bad, you may not wanna post it, right? So it's gotta just be intelligible. Like you gotta be able to hear it or people are just gonna turn it off. They're just gonna go, nah, it's no good, and they're not gonna give it a chance. So you have to have at least decent enough audio quality that you can hear the conversation. iPhones are great for it. They really do. Has anyone ever heard Joe Rogan's podcast? Anyone listen? He does them from a plane. When he's on a plane traveling from show to show, and he literally, him and whoever, he takes his iPhone and he hits record and just puts it between them. And even on his level, a top podcaster, it still sounds good enough that he's willing to put it out because it's fine. And you can hear the conversation. Sure, there's zzz in the background because they're in a plane. But 10 minutes in the conversation, you can hear what they're saying, so you forget all about that. And you just get lost in kind of the actual content of what they're saying. So, beyond that, the easiest way to do it is if you have your laptop or a computer, right? You want to get a microphone. This is an example of a USB microphone. You don't want to use just the inline plugins because it's going to have fuzz. It's going to have like an electric sound behind it. And that's just because of all the extra cords and connections that cause a fuzz. USB doesn't work that way. USB plugged directly into your laptop will make amazing sound. This microphone will cost you maybe $80 or so. This is a producer mic. It's nothing too crazy, but you can just get a cheap little stand at wherever, your local music store. I go to LA Music in Mississauga. But yeah, go to a music store. That's where they're gonna have any of the stuff that you wanna use, right? The proper equipment. So you plug that in. Next thing you're gonna need is a way to record it. There's a free audio platform called Audacity. It's free on the internet, and it's one of the most beautiful, glorious things that have ever been given to us, especially for free. Download it onto your computer, and I can't really explain to you how to use it here without if we had a whole presentation. But basically you hit record on the thing and the lines go across and you see your voice line going, and you kind of learn to use that. Cutting and editing, that comes with the process. But once you've recorded your audio into your laptop with your USB mic, you have your MP3. Then you can either use that raw, you can edit it, put music on the beginning, put music on the end, whatever you want to do to it. Sound bites, little sound effects. A lot of people like to play with their shows. Some people just prefer it raw. They slap music on the end. They don't even listen to any mistakes, and they just toss it out there, right? So once you've got that MP3, that's what you load into that Podbean or into that Libsyn that I was talking about. Goes out to the world. So that's your best way of home recording. When you're in your house, sitting down with your computer, because a lot of people do guests through things like Skype. You can download programs like a Skype recorder, which automatically records any Skype calls that you make. And it's a really good program. That's how I interview all my guests who are like on location far away from me. Get them to Skype in anywhere in the world, record that. It records it in 2 separate tracks, so I can edit either side of the voices. I can edit the guest's voice individually from the host's voice. Volume, you learn to play with that. YouTube's amazing. Just if you get into this, go to YouTube and get lost in Audacity tutorials. And it's incredible stuff. And it's a lot of fun to learn, like I was saying, these new skills, right? So some other methods of recording can be very simple as well, especially if maybe you're in a portable situation where you go to a friend's house, or you meet at a coffee shop, or you go to a bar. That's where you want to hang out. That's where you want to do your show. It's all good. You need some kind of portable recorder if you don't want to lug this and your laptop along with you. So I started with this. This is by a company called Zoom. And this is the H1. It's their very simplest recorder. It's incredibly light, it's incredibly basic, takes one little AAA battery in the back. And when I put a card in this, I can record for hours, like 15 hours this will record. Depending on your SD card, right? Like your memory card that you put, just slides into the side right here. And it's very simple. It's got record on and off. You hit this big middle button and it's recording. And there's a few little extra additives, like you can play back and listen to your recording and see how it sounded, right? So that's a good basic way to stop. There's also Tascam, which is another company that makes similar things to this. But there's a few good ones. If you go to like Long & McQuaid or any music shop, they're gonna have these devices. Several different ones to choose from. So this is about as basic as it gets, are these little tiny H1 recorders. You can even get smaller ones. You could use spy pen recorders if you want. Whatever records your voice, good. But these are really high quality. Zoom is usually the choice of podcasters. Now this is the H1. Right here, this is the H6. This is the most recent H out in the line of H-line, I guess, from Zoom or whatever you want to call it. And this thing's amazing. This thing is like an entire recording studio in your pocket. You can record basic. What it does is it comes with these different microphones. You get a little nice little kit here, right? And it comes with these different microphones. For directional microphones, if you're doing like a one-on-one, if you want to kind of pick up the whole room, more of a rounded microphone. And these are very cool. It's as simple as they're just like quick connects where you press the sides and they pop right in there and turn it on, hit record, you're good to go. Left side, right side, you can record on either side of these separately. So when you download it out, the MP3 onto your Audacity to do your editing, whatever program you want to use, It's going to do it in separate tracks, which is amazing. It's also got these plugs on the side here. So you can put actual XLR mics like these. This connection here will plug right into these side ports. There's also another top thing that you can get 2 more. So if I want, I can have up to 6 microphones like this recording out of this. So I can sit this in the middle of a table, stick 6 mics in it all around, and I'm going to get just as good audio quality as I'm going to get in most recording studios, to be honest. This is what the Nerdist uses. If you ever listen to Chris Hardwick, you're listening to this. If you ever listen to the Nerdist, you're listening to this. It's exactly what he uses, and it's incredible. A little bit pricey. This one I got actually on eBay. I think it was $350 Canadian. So it's not insane. You're not paying like $1,000 for this, but you're gonna drop like a good $400 for a good quality device. This thing, it's my baby. I'm so in love with this thing. It's crazy, crazy cool. All the little stuff you can do with it. You can edit inside this thing. You can do your audio engineering inside this thing. You don't even need to hook it up to anything. There's a little screen here, and then all these different ways and menus and toggles, and I can record something right here with someone, instantly put in my headphones, go into this and play with it. Get it to where I want it, and then stick it on the computer. So it's very, very cool for that, you know? And then from there, you're gonna start to learn how to improve your quality bit by bit. Things like this, like if you do have your USB microphone. I'm not like super anal about the quality. Like I like it to sound good, but it doesn't need to sound like, you know, it was recorded in like Abbey Road Studios or something. Do you know what I mean? But recently I was doing a project for someone where I had to really enunciate. And there was lots of P's and D's and T's. And that little t and that little duh and that little pa, especially the pa, that shows up on any kind of recording as overcompressed, which means the mic can't handle it, and it becomes a pop. So when you're listening to your recording back, you're gonna hear a pop instead of just a P sound. This is called a pop filter. Very, very simple little screened filter. See how it's flexible there? And it's like, I think I paid $15 for this one or something, and it just clips right in front of your microphone like that, and you don't gotta worry. You can pop and top and bop to your heart's content, and this is actually gonna stifle it. And it's not gonna overload the microphone with those intense shocks of volume that come from you using those hard consonants, right? So you learn that as you go on, and you know, it's a process podcasting. It's you know, something that can be just the most minuscule of hobby to something that people are trying to get big and famous off of. It's very, very, very hard. On average, there's 3,000 new podcasts a week, okay? This is a vast ocean of content. Now, if you look at it from the attitude of, I'm doing this because it's fun and I love to do it, and the things I've learned and gained out of doing it, that's one thing, right? That's kind of where I took that thought. It's a thought I always try to push on people. Please do this because you want to do it. Don't use this as a tool to get famous because you wanted to be a radio disc jockey in high school. Do you know what I mean? Do this because you want to share what's on your mind. Remember, your podcast is your voice, literally. It's your brand, it's your voice, it's who you are. It's what you want the world to hear from you. So, you know, take that into consideration when you have your goals. Some people don't even have goals podcasting. They just like to mess around with their friends on the weekends and talk about comics and record it, and they just have fun doing that. Some other people really want to be Kevin Smith. And you kind of see it, you know? There's a plethora of nerd and geek podcasts because we were the first kind of genre to pick up on it. Most podcasts started out as geek comic book podcasts just because we clued in first. But then they started growing, and now you can hear a podcast on anything, which is absolutely amazing. And it's growing as far as people's awareness of what a podcast is. So again, I recommend you do it for the love of it, do it for the fun of it, and things will just kind of come your way. So I started just talking with a friend. And out of that, I'm doing things like this. I've got to meet insane people because of my show. People I would have never thought I'd be in the same room with. I'm going to give you some guest names, not trying to brag. I'm just trying to make you understand how you can go from sitting in your basement with your buddy talking about Portuguese man-o-wars to having Darth Maul, Ray Park, on your show, which was one of my favorites I ever did. And I could not believe that I'm sitting there talking to Ray Park, right? Julian Glover. And everyone familiar with Julian Glover? Indiana Jones, Last Crusade, Empire Strikes Back, one of the finest guests I've ever had on my show. Last year I got to talk with John Ostrander, who's a legendary comic book writer, if you're familiar with him. And I met him at Motor City Comic Con. Did with this quick little, actually I still had this at the time, I think. I think it was this I used. Did a quick little interview with him. And then was like, can I Skype with you? Can we do a full hour? Because I'd like to really get into a talk with you. And he was like, sure. So I Skyped up John Ostrander and did an hour conversation in my basement through this microphone. And you forget that you're recording. You're having so much fun in this conversation, meeting these cool people, having good times, you forget. And oh yeah, I was recording this whole thing. People get to listen to it now, right? So I say just, do it for the love of the pod. Do it for the love of the things that'll come through it. Never thought I'd be a Comic-Con moderator, right? Like I'm going down to Philly next week to moderate Alan Tudyk's panel. All because I sat down with my friend in the basement and hit record. What the hell, right? No matter what you do, you work hard, put your passion and love into it. It's an art form. Don't ever let anybody tell you that podcasting is not an art form, because there's an etiquette and an art to the interview, to the conversation, to the whole structure of the whole thing. But it's cool because it is so loose. You learn it as you go. So that's kind of the basics of podcasting, guys. That's how you would get into it. That's how you would start. And that's kind of where the evolution would take you if you decide to grow with it. Or screw that. Some guy could still be for 5 years straight, still recording on his iPhone. That's all good. That is still a podcast. And that still counts as good as any other podcast. Right next to Chris Hardwick. They're doing the same. They got a site with an RSS. The exact same thing you got. They don't have anything special. They may have pricier equipment, but they have advertisers, right? Just like YouTube, just like anything. That's the only way you make money podcasting is if you get advertisers. Same with anything. But other than that, anybody can do this, and I highly encourage you to. So if you want to talk to me, I'm Jay. I'm out there rolling around, or you can go to Points of Interest or anelegantweapon.ca. Get a hold of me online. I'm happy to help if you have any questions. Right on? Cool.
Thanks a lot for coming. You can stick around, come back in a few minutes. We're going to set up for Bob and Anthony from the Transformers.
Oh, you shouldn't miss that. In fact, I met him yesterday. I was like, okay, I need you on my pod.